Well, doesn't time fly when we're having fun? Here we are yet again, and it's time to catch up over coffee. And today I'm really, really excited to welcome along Carolyn Butler-Madden. Have I put the emphasis on the right syllables there?
Thank you, yes.
Fantastic, good, good. So first of all, we have to check in. Do you have a beverage with you? Because we're catching up over coffee, right?
I have a lovely cup of Nespresso coffee.
Now, is that a favourite cup? Or is it just a handy cup?
It's my second favourite cup. So I've got a smaller white cup, but that's in the wash. So it's my second favourite cup.
Okay, fair enough. I thought I'd share this with you. I randomly just grabbed this, but as I grabbed it, I thought, how apt.
Sea Shepherd. Oh, wow, fantastic.
So, cheers. Welcome along.
Cheers. How did you get that?
You know, I don't actually, I think my partner brought it home from something. I actually can't remember, but I do know I laid claim to it. Like, that's mine. That's mine now.
That's my identity, yes.
Yeah. And then I've got a Royal Dalton that I drink my tea out of.
Brilliant.
You know, makes the tea just taste that much better. Anyway, enough of that. Obviously, welcome along. It's great to have you here. And you and I have known each other at least in the ether now for a couple of years, which has been great. You know, and we've had parlay backwards and forwards. And the other day, you and I obviously also caught up and just had some conversation. And I just thought it would be fantastic to have you on here. And, you know, the pretext of these catch-up over coffees is I love meeting with business owners who are moving and shaking and who are doing so, you know, kind of very, very deliberately and thoughtfully, which is absolutely you. And what I also like to kind of spin into this conversation, because of what I do and my audience, is, you know, the bits and pieces of your journey that have been around sales as well. But we'll get to the sales piece a little bit later on. Just to kick off though, why don't we do the old social pitch?
Oh, the old social pitch.
Tell us what you do, Carolyn.
I am founder and chief purpose activist at The Cause Effect. So we are a purpose consultancy, and what that means is we help business leaders define, articulate, and embed meaningful purpose into their business in a way that drives profit through purpose. And it's not just a little add-on, it's about unlocking the full value and delivering win-win.
Wow. How good is that? How long has it been since you've had to use that?
You know, I use it quite regularly.
Yeah.
Because I think still purpose is, there's a lot of misconceptions around purpose, but also purpose is just not really understood by everybody. It kind of leaves them scratching their head a bit. And what's a purpose consultant?
Yeah.
So I need to quantify it. I need to give a bit of an explanation. And yeah, so I've used that quite a bit. And there's still questions that come after it, but at least it starts at a level which is like, okay, all right, I kind of get that. Yep. And it opens up a new conversation.
Well, and that really is the purpose of as you and I refer to it, the social pitch or the elevator pitch, isn't it really? You know, hopefully it results in people saying, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Something of that ilk. All right. Very good.
As opposed to going, what the hell? I don't understand anything they just said. So I'm just going to shut up.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Like, I'm a recruiter. Oh, bye. Nobody wants to talk to recruiters or real estate agents or used car salesmen. We're a maligned bunch.
Recruiters? I would have thought quite the opposite.
Well, right now, a lot of people want to talk to recruiters, but yeah, it's an interesting thing, you know. And look, I will confess that I used to be in that kind of group who would malign recruiters to some degree as well. Excuse me. And I think, as I shared with you the other day, and we're not going to make this about me, this is going to be about you, but yeah, I shared with you the other day, I got into recruitment because I believe that recruitment is broken, right?
Yeah.
And as I've had conversations with lots and lots and lots of business owners, invariably the view that they have had about recruiters tends to err towards the negative, right? So anyway.
Yeah.
So before we get into the current business and, you know, back to the purpose stuff. Tell us a bit more about you and your journey. How have you ended up here?
How far back do you want to go? Shall we start with, look, okay, I'm going to start in, given your background is sales, I'm going to start with my first job.
Okay.
Because my first job was in sales.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if I've shared this with you before, but I sold paintings door to door.
You did, yeah.
All right, okay. So yeah, I came back. I had been living, so I'd been living in the UK for like 3-4 years. I was dragged over there to finish my schooling by my mother kicking and screaming. And first chance I had, I came back to Perth and just got this job, you know, one of those dodgy jobs, selling paintings door to door. But I found my tribe. I found all these travelers, and it forced me, and I was like 18, 19, it forced me to get really uncomfortable. I mean, knocking on people's doors.
Yeah, that's a hard slog. Wow.
Yeah. And I have so many funny stories around that time, from falling off doorstep, just anyway. But that's where I started, and I did that for like 3-4 months. Then I moved to London, the big smoke, and I ended up in a sales coordinator role for Accor. So at this stage, I'm 19 and just like, I want to travel the world. I want to see things. I want to see places. I want to be a hippie. I'm a child of the universe, peace man, that kind of thing. And so I was just taking work that would give me money so I could fulfill my dream.
Right.
And I did the thing with Accor, which was, again, a really good grounding for about a year, I think. And then I took off traveling and I came back to London broke. I'd been out traveling for 4 or 5 months, broke, needing to get work, and with this idea of I just need to earn money so I can go off traveling again in another 3 months.
Right.
And I got this job at an agency. I didn't know what they did. Turned up.
An agency. So when you say an agency, a marketing agency.
Yeah, like an advertising agency.
Advertising agency. Gotcha.
And I turned up and I got the job on reception and started doing that. And I was such a terrible, terrible receptionist. Like, awful. I constantly got names mixed up. I constantly didn't deliver messages. I think they liked that I was the Aussie and I was kind of laid back, but I was pretty crap at my job. And so within 6 months, they invited me to come into the agency. So clearly I didn't make enough money. This was London in the 80s. And I was too busy having fun, so I didn't save money. They invited me to come into the agency and work in their client service side of things, so account service it's called. And
so by then, so we're in the 80s, and in the 80s, as I remember it, and one of the key, you know, movies was obviously Wall Street and all that kind of thing. And so the greed is good thing. Had the Mad Men era yet passed, or was it that still going on?
No, the Mad Men era had passed, but we were right in the thick of greed is good, you know, and just like people were working all hours. You know, careers were about, there was no balance, particularly in the agency world, is, you know, you would be working till 10 o'clock at night and then you'd go to the pub and, you know, party, drink, roll home at 3 in the morning and then get up again and do it all over again. It was nuts. It was crazy, crazy, crazy. And I was incredibly lucky to land in an agency that was extraordinary. It was a company called Option One, and the culture they created was unbelievable. And I look back at, you know, the opportunities that they gave everyone to stretch their wings and grow, and the trust and the support they provided. And it was unbelievable. So that I ended up staying, like, to my shock, for almost 10 years, because I considered myself a free spirit.
Right.
And you know, I was approached, and I went from receptionist up to group account director. I started when the company was like 25 people strong, and it went up to about 80 and then settled at about 60.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. And, you know, they won most creative agency of the year, like 3 years running. Just did things differently, and incredible culture. And I loved what I did. I was all in. I found my place at the intersection of strategy, creativity, and results. Like, always got off on results. Maybe that sales, you know, the sales that was ingrained in me came through.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I loved it, and I went all in. But I felt a bit of a disconnect,
Right.
because I was brought up by my mother with a very strong social conscience, lived in different parts of the world,
Mm-hmm.
and she kind of ingrained in me and my sister this idea from a very young age that of privilege, I guess. So the idea that we did nothing to deserve being born into a comfortable middle class family. It was pure luck.
Serendipity.
Yeah, and you know, by that same luck, we could have been born into a family in Ethiopia or somewhere else. And
Yep.
she said, you know, with this knowledge comes the responsibility that, you know, you've got to do something. You can't just sit back and take it all. You've got to do something. And, you know, I remember being 5 or 6, and she had a film distribution company in Singapore, where we were living between Singapore and Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
And she used to every month go to an orphanage and screen those films. And she'd take me and my sister. And it sounds awful, but, you know, it was so uncomfortable because all these kids were there and they would stare at us. And, you know, when you're a kid, you're really conscious of these things.
Mm.
And there were kids there with deformities, who were albinos, who were different.
Mm.
And it scared me, and it made me uncomfortable. And the same with my older sister. And we hated those things, which sounds awful, but I'm just being honest as to how it felt as a kid. It was really uncomfortable. And yeah, little did I know that those seeds were being sown, and, you know, those uncomfortable experiences really reinforced what she was teaching us.
Mm-hmm.
That
I think in your defense, though, we human beings are hardwired to be scanning and looking for difference, right? Something doesn't fit here, something's not right here. And so that, you know, kicks in the whole fight or flight thing, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think it's normal for us all to have that initial reaction. And then it's just a question of later in our lives, when we're far more conscious of it, to what degree are we then responding consciously and appropriately?
And that's it. And I feel like, you know, I've got a 21, nearly 22-year-old daughter, and as she was growing up, I really recognized that just because something was uncomfortable, you didn't need to protect.
Yeah.
I shouldn't protect her from it all the time. You know, it's exposure, understanding, inviting questions, all of that, but don't immediately protect them, or that was my view, don't immediately protect her from all of that, because it's important that, you know, she's learning as she goes. So how did I end up in marketing, in the dark arts, and in an agency, no less? So there was a disconnect with how I was brought up, but I loved what I was doing. I loved the skills I used, but I always had this kind of feeling of, yeah, but it's marketing, and felt a bit apologetic for it, because
Really?
it was just selling shit, right?
Right. Yeah.
Call it spade a spade. And, you know, selling more 3M discs or Scotch video cassettes or Sea-Link ferry trips, or, you know, all the different clients I worked with back then in London. And I really valued the experience, but there was just that kind of like bit of dirtiness to it.
Right.
And so I just separated my lives, as I think we all did back then. And I had my work life and I was all in. I had my social life and I was all in. But then I had you know, what I was passionate about beyond that, which was just the right thing. So I was a member of Amnesty International. You know, I'd be getting involved in protest marches and rallies, and yeah, just that sort of thing. Like, I'll never forget being part of, and it's only a vague memory, but it's still a powerful one, being part of the huge rally in Hyde Park to free Nelson Mandela.
Wow.
And that was incredible, because it's just this energy and this movement. And Winnie Mandela, his wife, was speaking. Archbishop Desmond Tutu was there. Like, and it was just this sense of something has to change. And so for me, and I think I was in my early to mid 20s then, what happened afterwards, where he got released, you know, not that long afterwards, it kind of made me realize the power of movement and the power of collective action to create change. And all it takes is one person.
Right.
One person and another one person and another one person. So it really set me up with this sense of just that one person can make a difference, and you need one person to start a movement.
Yeah.
You need lots of them. So so yeah, that was how I dealt with it. I separated everything. Decided to come back to Australia. I think it was 94, 95, and came back here and joined an agency, a small agency, and just continued doing what I'd done. And then I think it was around 2009 or 10, we ran a campaign for a client of ours, and it was a cause marketing campaign. So it was marketing, you know, it wasn't, the brand didn't have a purpose or anything, but it was cause marketing. And it wasn't the first time I'd done a cause marketing campaign. I looked back and, you know, I'd done a few over time, but it was the first time we could measure the results. Right. And put it purely down to that campaign, because it was all they did. And the results were phenomenal.
And isn't that the Achilles heel for marketing? I mean, you know, I often hear marketing being referred to as the colouring in department and things like that, you know, and the capacity for marketing to truly to be able to discern ROI is often amorphous. It's often, you know, very, very difficult to do. But in this one, you were actually able to see it, yeah?
Absolutely. And the kind of marketing where I started in the agency world was what is called below the line marketing, which back then was promotions, direct marketing, and expanded to, you know, brand experience and things like that. But it was at the hard-nosed end. That part of marketing was always about driving results. And I always got off on that. But this was literally, because with other campaigns, you could see results, but then clients and others would go, yeah, but we had this advertising campaign and we had this and we had that, so we don't know if this actually, you know, what it did. This we knew, and the results were phenomenal. Sales, and the thing that I found really interesting was brand health. And so this was around trust, you know, a brand I can trust and relate to. Right. And I saw this and I kind of stopped and went, oh. And also I had a planner, a strategic planner at the time. She did all this research, and she showed me what was going on around the world, particularly over in the US. And she started showing me these strategic partnerships that were creating win-win outcomes. And I was really drawn to it. And so we ran this campaign. The results were great. 3 years later, I took myself off to Chicago, to the world's biggest, what was then Cause Marketing Conference, is now Social Purpose. And it blew my mind completely, because I saw things at a strategic level. I saw what good can look like, you know, when it's not just a little marketing campaign tactically added on, but when it is a strategic partnership and they're coming together to create change in the world. So it was the beginnings of the social purpose movement, and what is now becoming the purpose movement. And I came back from that just blown away and changed, right? I came back as this raving evangelist for change. Because to me, I looked at it and went, I know what brands are looking for. I know what brand marketers are looking for. They're looking for, you know, they want to acquire new customers, but they want loyal customers. They want to engage these customers. They want these customers to sing about their brand from the rooftops. This stuff does all of that while creating great positive impact in the world. And it can be a long-term thing. It's just win-win-win on steroids. And I'm like, the world needs to know about this because
So this is under your brand name Sunday Lunch, yes?
Yes, correct.
Okay, why that name?
Because even when it was still very much just a generic agency, I had this idea about bringing brands and people together with common values. And who do you invite to Sunday lunch?
Ah, there you go. Very good.
Your family and your friends. It was a name that, it caused all sorts. No, it just, I don't know. It didn't help our business particularly, but it meant something personally to what we were trying to achieve. So, that was Sunday Lunch, and came back, tried to steer the agency down that path. You know, put presentations together, went out, started to educate clients. And so here's what I learned, James. I would do presentations, often in groups, so big corporate. So I was working with big corporate clients. And they would bring the whole marketing department in, and you know the drill. You get a group of people and they sort of wearily come into the boardroom, and they would have that sort of energy about them, like, what the bloody hell are we doing here? I've got so much work to do. Why am I sitting in another presentation? You can see their body language all like that. And then when I started getting into it, because it's such an exciting subject, right? Literally, you would feel the shift in the room. Like every single time I could feel it. And it just, I think it plays to a human truth. I believe that we all want to feel like we're contributing something meaningful through our work.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
And we're just so used to not. When we see an opportunity where we can do it and deliver what is expected of us at the same time, people lean in. They get excited, and you can feel it, and you could see, you know, the energy shift of people leaning in and getting excited. But getting them to that next stage of doing something about it was really, really hard.
Right.
So this is from 2012 to 2016. And we got a few over the line, but it was really hard. And it comes down to simple fact that if you are a client and you do what has always been done, even if you don't get the results that are expected of you, nobody will have your head straight away. But if you try something new and different and you don't get those results, you're gone. You know, it's you put your head on that chopping block and you're gone. I think that's changed a bit now, but back then that was how it was. So who would put their head on that chopping block, you know, and take that risk? So we got a few over the line, but not as many as I would have liked to. And I just found it really hard. Australia wasn't ready for it. The clients we talked to weren't ready for it. And our clients were going, we need another promotion, we need a new product launch, we need a campaign, we need this, we need that. And when I had 7 employees and I had to make sure their salaries were being paid, and so you take the work that does that.
Yeah.
And a few things happened. Long story, so I won't go into all the detail, but literally we lost a client that we'd had for 20 years because of changes within the client. Like the results we were delivering were huge. All these things happen, and suddenly I was faced with having to rebuild the business. And, you know, our big clients had, gone for a number of different reasons, none of which any of us could have controlled, global reasons and stuff like that. And it left me at a point where I had to ask myself a question of whether I was ready to rebuild the agency again. And I'd done it twice.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I could do it, but I also knew what the cost would be to me personally, to my family. And it really surprised me, because I kind of went, don't know if I'm actually up for it. And I'm an all-in person, right? When I go all in, I'm all in.
Yeah.
And it begged the question, well, then what are you up for? And I just smiled to myself, because I just thought, far out. You know what you're up for. You know what you have been banging on about for the last few years. And it felt to me like the universe was kind of going, like it really felt like the universe was going, you talk a big talk.
Right.
Let's see, are you ready to walk it? And so I made the decision to walk away from the agency, let it go, and start from scratch. Now, this is something I'd never done before.
Really?
Like start from scratch. You know, I'd come in as a partner before.
Okay. And with including Sunday lunch, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sunday lunch, I had a baseline. I had a couple of clients. So
Right.
when I moved it over from the previous agency that I was owner of as well, and half owner of, there was a starting point. Here, I was starting from zero. And I was doing that with a hot Sydney mortgage, which ain't fun, right?
Uh-huh.
Not fun at all.
They call that debt propulsion.
Oh, yeah, right. I was propelled. Propelled and compelled. And yeah, so just started, didn't know what I was starting, thought it might be another agency, but knew I couldn't have the pressure of salaries to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like money that was still in the business, which I pretty much burnt through over the next year or so. I wrote my book, Path to Purpose, went deeper into this area. And as it's like being a starving artist, I guess. It was hard. It was really, really hard. Financially, it was really hard, and it was scary. But I never doubted I was on the right path. For the first time in my life, I was directly on a path that mattered to me.
Isn't that great?
And it really is. And I'm really lucky I had the support of my family, you know, my husband and my daughter, who've, you know, had to go through, someone called it something, nouveau poverty.
Okay.
Perfectly describes it. We went through this nouveau poverty period where you have to cut back on your groceries and all of that. But, you know, they did it willingly to support me, because they knew what it meant to me, and they knew I was passionate about it. And, you know, it didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of hard work. It's been a roller coaster ride, but yeah, I'm here. I'm loving it. And I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time with the right goods and skills. Like finally I'm using my skills in a way that aligns 100% with my passion.
Isn't that interesting then? You know, you've been going through that journey where there hasn't really been quite as much satisfaction as you might have liked or could have possibly had you been doing other things. And yet it's been that journey that's then facilitated you being able to do what you do today as well as you do, right?
100%. Yeah.
So let's talk about the being a business owner in startup mode and the hustle and the grind. I hate those bloody words, but you know, the doing of the do to win business, and then again and again and again. You know, are you at a point now where it's gathered momentum for you?
Yeah, gathered huge momentum at the end of last year.
Right.
And started January on steroids. Like I couldn't have even imagined starting January the way it did.
Wow.
It was kind of like, whoa, okay. It's like a runaway train. And then March came, and COVID, and it was, I got hit like everybody else.
Yeah.
I didn't lose everything, but a lot. And we've been sort of coming back, and we're coming back steadily. And, new product innovation has opened it up, what I do, from medium to larger businesses now to smaller businesses as well. And I've really enjoyed that process. And I was kind of forced down that track faster than I would have done without COVID. But yeah, it's now starting to gain momentum again.
Good.
And so it feels like it's resilient to pandemics.
Right. How do you feel about selling?
It's such an interesting question. And you posed this to me the other day, and it just made me think about it. And it's so different now to how I approach selling with the agency.
Right. Okay.
And I tell you what drives that difference for me. Even though I knew through the agency, and I had a brilliant team, I knew that we would deliver value. It's 100% because we are now driven by our purpose. I am now driven by our purpose. And that changes everything. On so many levels, it changes things. So yeah, it's the difference is driven by the clarity of our purpose, who we serve. Why we serve is the fundamental thing, but wrapped up in why we serve is who we serve.
Right.
Not everybody. It's our people like us. It's the people, like using Seth Godin's term, and I do a lot and I use it in my work. It's find your people like us. Find the people who share your beliefs or share a vision of the future that you care enough about that you want to contribute to, and who share a similar narrative to you. And that narrative is a belief that business can and should be a force for good. And that's our people like us. So it's driven by our why, who we serve, and then how and what. And yeah, it changes everything. And I can talk about, if you're interested, the differences between before and after.
Oh, please. Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah. What I want this series to do for business owners in particular is, just to kind of give them a sense of comfort, because I know that a lot of small business owners don't really want to be in sales, right? They didn't get into business to be a salesperson. They got into business to do that thing that they ideally love and are passionate about, but at the very least, they're very good at doing, right?
Yeah.
And they want to be able to do what it is that the business invoices, not be the salesperson. Right. And in fact, with a lot of my clients, obviously, they're also about to now embark on another journey. And that is they're going to have to learn to become this thing called a sales manager, right? Because I'm finding their salesperson for them. And you can't set and forget a salesperson. You've got to be there and give them guidance and leadership and coaching and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm always interested to hear from business owners who've been through that journey. Their experience of before and after in terms of this whole sales thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So before, with the agency, I always felt apologetic. It felt a bit dirty, even with my background selling paintings door to door and, learning the stuff I learned through that. I don't know, I kind of felt just like I had to apologize for it. And that was reflected in how I approached cold calling and stuff like that. And then, of course, I also learned things like spin and specifics. So, the whole idea of, okay, so you've got to ask questions, and you've got to ask situational questions, and then you move on to problem questions, and then implication questions, and then you get them to articulate their need, and then you go, well, look what I got. And so I would be like trying to step through this process, and God, it was hard work and stressful, and trying to work. And I guess because the agency that I had was also many things to many people, it'd be all the time thinking about, okay, so how do I capture what they need and figure out how we can help them solve that need? So you're trying to ask questions, listen to answers, show that you're engaged, come up with solutions in your head. Freaking stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, not fun. And so there was that. And so it felt manufactured and just, yeah, I don't know. And then the other part of it was quite interesting. There was a part of me that loved the chase of new business,
Mm-hmm.
loved it, and always loved pitching, like our creative ideas against others.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the thrill of the chase. And when we secured a new client, I'd be on a high and the team would be on a high and we'd celebrate. But then I always remember having to manage a shift in energy, because after we got it, I'd go, woof. And then I'd have to switch into creative and strategic mode to start that whole process of delivering and building the relationship with the client. And I found that really hard. It was like this huge sudden go down to going back up, and just managing that shift was always a bit interesting. So that was before.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's totally different. It's driven by our purpose. So sales is actually a blend of sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with, as I said before, it always starts with defining who our people like us are, because what we have isn't relevant to everybody. And that's the first big thing for me. It's not going, how many people can I sell to knowing that I'll get X conversion out of it? That's gone. Now it's, I know who we can serve and who we can add value to.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in finding those people.
In a similar fashion, and I think I shared this with you the other day, I owned a leadership development business for 13 years, which would see us taking groups of corporate managers 10 at a time out to a 1,000-acre property that we had and immersing them in a world of living hell for 4 days, right? And you know, and the intent behind that was to teach them leadership skills, but leadership skills in the face of adversity, right?
Yeah.
And we absolutely knew that the makeup of that program just would not appeal to a whole bunch of companies. We were unlikely to get Estee Lauder coming out to the farm anytime soon, right? And so with my salespeople, you know, and kind of now aligning with what you've just shared, you know, my rule of thumb to them was always just look for the ones who are looking. You don't need to convert people to our faith, right? Just look for the ones who are looking. There are going to be people and businesses out there that see the transferability of what we're talking about, and they'll see it as appropriate. We don't need to convince people that boot camp is the best thing ever. You know, just look for the ones who are looking. Makes all the difference in the world.
It does. It sounds so obvious, but it's not. You know, it's one of those things that it's like, you know, who look for the ones who are looking and who have needs or problems that we can truly solve in a big way. So absolutely. So, you know, we start with that, and it's about, okay, how do you find those people when it's a narrative thing? It's not as if I can search for them.
Right.
You know, people who believe this. And
I'm sure Facebook would have an algo for that by now.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not that active on Facebook, but maybe I should be more active there. But so for me, what that is, it's about, it's awareness, right? But awareness to the right people. So that is about showing up in the right places, and sharing content that, you know, share our purpose, our beliefs, all these different things. So it's content on social media, it's speaking at events, it's doing video cast interviews like this, it's doing podcast interviews, it's all of the above and so much more. So it's just being out there in those places and educating people on, you know, why purpose is relevant, how it can generate success for their business, and also how it can make them feel so much more fulfilled in what they do personally and create meaningful social impact. So that's the awareness piece. And then we move to consideration. And I always frame it up as, okay, so what's the barrier to consideration?
Mm-hmm.
And in the area I'm in, the barrier to consideration is fear of getting it wrong, not
Right.
knowing how to approach it, having misconceptions about what purpose is. So, you know, I've got to remove all those barriers. And again, that's, you know, through the content and the particular type of content, and also talking to people, just having conversations. So that's starting to get them to consider that purpose, you know, now might be a good time for purpose for them. So it's more about, I'm not selling us, I'm selling it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm going deep. So they know that, you know, I'm an expert. The book is part of that as well.
Right.
And yeah, scorecards and things like that. So the next one then is action.
Mm-hmm.
How do you generate action? And one thing I didn't say before is a big thing for me is before it was about how do I get the quick sale?
Right.
Today, I don't see it as a quick sale. I look at it, it's like any relationship. It's a journey, right? And it's as much about the time I invest in them as anything. So I've actually had some really quick sales, and it confuses the hell out of me, because it's kind of like, what you want to start, you want to work now, or you want me to bill you? What do you want me to bill you? Really? Just it's a bonus,
Right.
but it's not what I expect. I expect to court them, if you like. You know, it's a journey for them to get to know me and me to get to know them and all of that. So the action part is, you know, now I want to see how serious you are about this, and whether you're going to start taking little actions to start moving along your path to purpose, you know, just one little step. So that could be, you know, getting a copy of my book. It could be, I've got a little physical and PDF scorecard that they can use. It's a very basic one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's webinars, podcasts, masterclasses. You know, it's getting them to invest in themselves.
Right.
So I want to see that before I start
Yeah.
talking to them about, you know, buying any of our products. And then conversion is, okay, you know, we've been on this journey, we've built the relationship. I've shown you, you know, you consumed enough to know why this is vital, to know if it is right for your business today. And then it's a conversation, and it doesn't feel like sales. It feels to me like I want to have a conversation so I can understand where you're at. You know, are you in a position where this could be a game changer for you? If you're, you know, in the middle of the pandemic, if you're struggling to keep your head above water, now's not the time to do this. You've got to take care of business first. Like, there's definite, like, a purpose strategy will drive financial performance, no doubt about it. But it's a medium to long-term strategy.
Right.
And someone who's struggling needs to take care of that. And so for me, that conversation is about understanding them and understanding if they are in that position where, you know, our Path to Purpose program could unlock that full value, or maybe it's a mini step and it's one of our little workshops that we do first in order for them to put a toe in the water. But it's not a sell. It is a sell, but it's not the sell, you know, in the old sense of the word that I used to think about. So, yeah.
It sounds to me, obviously, there's a whole bunch of education going on long before a buying decision is made. And I think that's the difference then, is that you're not selling, they're buying.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Right, they're making a choice because they've gone through the educative process, and it resonates with where they want to be. You know, they've got a problem of some sort to be solved. They've self-educated to the point where they recognise, yeah, you are the solution. And excuse me,
Can I have one of those?
Yeah. Or it's not right for me now, but keep me in the loop.
Yeah.
Because, you know, love this, and at some point,
yeah,
I want to do it. So absolutely. And that educative process, I don't know, it's blurred between, is that sales or marketing? You kind of go, it's marketing, but you're also selling an idea.
Yeah. Well, so, to quote somebody who's kind of in our circle, I can't remember Peter's surname, unfortunately, it's gone out of my head, but he often refers to it as smarketing.
Ah, I like that.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, 100%. But I think it's elegant selling, elegant sales.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I think so Glenn Carlson, I heard, yeah.
Yeah. So you know how at the very beginning of this, you said to me, how long does this generally go for? So far we've been going for 50 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Which is great. I love it. And it's just been such goodness. So let's make an assumption that most people are going to want to tune out soon. So we might wrap it up in a few minutes' time. When is the right time for, I think that, you know, you and I tend to hang out in a circle of people who absolutely get the notion of, you know, working with a cause, right? And you know, there are lots of us who talk about B1, G1 and, you know, all the various things. And I know personally, there are a number of things that I'm very, very emotionally attached to where I want to make an impact and I want to improve people's lives in one way or another. When is the right time to step into that?
I think the right time in working with the cause is, and I'm using your words there specifically for a reason, is now, because it's so easy to do. And, you know, you mentioned B1, G1, and I partner with them as well. And for a small business, there's no excuse to stop you from doing something through an organization like B1, G1, because they make it so easy and you can start at such a achievable investment point that even if you're not making money, it's like you can start. Right. You can start. So, and there's a big difference between working with a cause and becoming a purpose-led organization. But working with a cause can be a step on your path to purpose.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'd say to anybody, you know, if you feel like, yes, you know, I'd love to work with a cause, but our business just isn't there right now. You don't even have to have a business to do that.
Right.
You know, you with B1, G1, you can start creating impact at 2 cents. And all you need to do is get started, and you'll see that you can easily change people's lives, you know, starting at a really small level. And what I find is once people start, they want to level up.
Right.
You know, so the barrier is starting. So just start, because it's not just about, it is 100% about the impact you can create, the change you can create for someone who hasn't had the luck to be born into a position of privilege. And most of us in Australia are in some form of position of privilege. Not all, but most of us, I think, in our network. No matter how tough we're doing it, we have privileges that others don't. So yeah, just get started, because that barrier is so low, you can just step over it without any, you know, without any hassle at all. But then the purpose side of things, the difference there is when you identify your purpose that is strategically aligned to your business and your brand, and I don't care how big or small a business is, how small it is still a brand. It is about, it's essentially about how you create positive change in the world through and beyond your products and services. So it's not just a statement of context for your product or your service, which is a massive misconception. And a lot of big companies think of it that way. And they go, oh, we're a purpose-led organization. We've got a purpose statement. We know our why. And that why is doing nothing to energize their business. It's doing nothing to inspire and unify their people, create action and create change in the world. Because a purpose should inspire that action through the products or services that you offer and beyond. It should drive innovation because you're creating this change in the world. And it should drive all this action beyond what you're doing. It should energize your people from the inside out. And it gives you the opportunity to actually be a part of and start movements which include your people, your clients, your partners, and your suppliers. So yeah, sorry, I'll stop. I get very passionate about it.
No, that's great. It's fantastic. So for those in my audience who have cottoned on to what you're saying, and it's probably been laying dormant, I'm going to say here, it probably resides here, but it actually really lives here, right? What are some easy pathways forward for them to connect with you or to soak up more of your goodness? What are the best ways for us to do that?
Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only Carolyn Butler-Madden there, so I'm very easy to find. And I share a lot of content regularly on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
You can subscribe to our newsletter. So we only put a newsletter out if we've got something of value to share, so we won't clutter up your inbox. On average, it's fortnightly, sometimes weekly. So go to thecauseeffect.com.au and you can sign up there, and that gives you deep insights. And have a look. So we've got a page on our website called DGS, #DGS. Did you know what that stands for?
No.
You know GSD?
Yeah.
GSD, get shit done.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of small business owners know that,
Yep.
are very intimate with that phrase. So we at The Cause Effect have coined the phrase DGS, do good shit.
And love it.
And this is particularly, and this phrase came to light when the pandemic started, and we started seeing all these businesses around Australia step up and just do something, do something.
Yeah.
And so we started off by sharing these examples. We've been building a database of businesses doing well by doing good and purpose-led businesses. And so we've managed to put it on that page, and you'll just find a whole lot of inspiration of Australian businesses and global businesses. They're not all purpose-led, but they're all doing good shit in some way or form, and just a myriad. So that's a great place to go for inspiration. You don't have to give your email address or anything, just go devour it.
Mm-hmm.
And then go to our resources page, and I've got, webinars and things like that. If people want to get a better understanding of purpose, they can get in touch with me and I can share some videos with them.
And is the book still available, Path to Purpose?
Yes, the book is still available. You can get it on Amazon or any major online book retailer. And if you're keen to get a hot copy in your hands, get in touch and I will send you one.
Beautiful. All righty. Well, folks, I hope you have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. It's been fantastic having you on the show. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I really appreciate it. And what I particularly love is the passion, right? I think the interest in causes and purpose-led businesses is absolutely and utterly gathering momentum. I think that the crisis in which we find ourselves today, both the health crisis and also the economic crisis globally, will turn to be probably the touch point, right? The touch paper, I should say, the catalyst for more and more and more of us saying enough. We need to do things differently. So great to have you be a part of that. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to come along and having this chat with you. I really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure.